Inclusivity is one of the foundation stones of any company culture that creates an environment where all employees can look after their mental health and thrive. But sometimes persuading C-suites that this is a must rather than a nice to have can seem like a long road. But today I'm delighted to say that mentl has a new friend on our journey as General Motors becomes a partner with mentl as we work together to try and amplify our shared vision. And today starts the beginning of a series of conversations in which together we will try and amplify that conversation. So today I'm delighted to welcome to the Mental Space podcast, Monica Hernandez, who is the Human Resources Director for Africa and Middle East with General Motors. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Really happy to be here.
I'm really happy for us to be here and starting this conversation. Now, I'm going to start at the top with a piece of science, which we were in conversation with a guy called Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, incredible specialist. But he told us that the feeling of loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And that shows up whether that's in our home life, at school, in our wider community, but also particularly in our work community. Now, I know at General Motors, you have this vision of becoming the most inclusive company on the planet. How does that vision speak to tackling this sense of loneliness?
Well, we started focusing in mental health and inclusion since 2013. So it has been a journey for us. Many companies I know that after COVID, they are starting to talk more about this loneliness and how to build this relationship with employees, etc. But for us, it has been a journey. So we have learned that it's a matter of making rapport, leaders and employees, and creating a safe environment where really you can express how you're feeling. Before, and I've been in HR for the last 23 years, it was never a topic to talk about happiness of employees. And now seems that beyond a trend, it's something that really we want to achieve. And why we want to achieve this, because as you were saying, it's not only a matter of having a nice phrase and saying, oh, we want to be the most and whatever. It's really having our employees bringing their whole selves to work. It can be from working from home. It can be at an office, picking up a little bit of human contact. But we're really living it through our values, our behaviors, and our leaders.
Okay, well, let's explore that a little bit deeper. When we talk about values and we talk about inclusivity, and inclusivity, we use this word, but it can mean many things. What does inclusivity mean at General Motors?
Inclusivity cannot be a standing alone word. For us, it's inclusivity and equity as well. And the diversity is already there, right? It has always been there. Inclusivity is looking into what each individual needs and trying to shape something according to their needs, professional and personal needs, right? It's not those times where we just said female need this or male in this age or generations need. It's no longer something on how we tackle individual needs, right? Now it's more like, what do you need? Trying to shape a solution, trying to shape a path for a person. Of course, we have thousands of employees, right? So maybe just one plan per employee won't be, we don't have enough leaders or enough time to do it. But at least letting them know that they can speak on their own and they can ask for whatever suits them.
Now, this is an interesting, almost like change, because the old way of doing things, almost like the Victorian steel mill owner, would be sit there, do that, and only need one manager to look after 50 different employees because they're all expected to do the same thing. It's interesting now that you're changing that dynamic so that you're approaching it, trying to create space where the employees can actually, almost like their needs become at the same time, or if not before, the company's needs. There's more of a give and take there.
Correct. And I think it's letting the employee know that they can be in the driver's seat of their own mental wellness, stability, balancing their needs. We instead of now saying it's life work balance, it's more of a life work integration.
Yeah, yeah.
And for that, you need to be in control, right? So we can provide many tools and many policies, but the accountability still is in the person.
Yeah.
And we want that to be clear with our employees and leaders, right? We can facilitate, we can, put solutions in place, but it's in the individual to really raise a hand and say, this is what I want.
Yeah.
This is what energizes me. This is my passion.
I love that. And we desperately need more of that in workspaces across the world. The barrier sometimes to this is the leaderships. Mm-hmm. And what we try to do at Mentl, because we've seen the research, is that if we talk in the language of the C-suite and we just drill it, that if the CEO doesn't get it in here, maybe we can get him in here and talk about the P&L. Mm-hmm. How do we change that conversation? Like in terms of General Motors and your leaderships, what have been the benefits? What's the return on investment that's changed the mindset within General Motors over the past nearly decade that you've been on this journey?
It's a complex one, what you're requesting. And I probably divide it in two. First, the list of requirements, the skills that we're looking into leaders has changed. Mm-hmm. Before it was more on the technical side, experience, how many years. Now it's more like we want a leader that is candid. We want a leader that is humble. We want a leader that is not afraid of being, exposed and being more human, let's say, right? So now we're looking more into the leadership characteristics rather than the technical. Of course, the technical is going to be important, but we're assuming that in your career, you have proven that and you can learn that. So since recruiting, we're posting our competencies and our behaviors have been shaped into these, curious leader, insightful leader, etc. So that is more leading the selection process of a leader rather than, he's really good in the technical part, but his people skills are not there. So that has been a change.
And it's really interesting if we think about the language both me and you are using. When we're describing out-of-date CEOs, we use the term he.
Yeah.
Whereas, and that's an interesting one because again, if we're talking about inclusivity, how has General Motors gone on this journey where we actually look at these leadership positions and it's the best candidate for the job and you are building in these leadership skills? And if we look at McKinsey report, I think it was last year McKinsey did this report where they talked about the leadership skills that were needed for CEOs to succeed. Mm-hmm. And actually, if you look at the language, they called them the alphas. Mm-hmm. It's quite masculine language. Mm-hmm. But then when you actually looked at all of the skills, they were all linked to emotional intelligence.
Correct.
So I think we're in this real period of change and disruption. And that's got to start at the leadership space. So inclusivity has to start within the leadership. And I'm interested to know General Motors' journey in that space.
Yeah. And we started more like, this is how you need to behave in an inspiring leader, but now we're not leaving it to luck. This means we know that some leaders are more naturally people-oriented. And sometimes you become a leader and no one is really mentoring you in that journey. So we're taking care of, you become a new leader, so we give them specific training, being a leader that is a multiplier rather than, a leader that tells people what to do, etc. But also we're measuring them. Yeah. Each of us in our annual objective list, one objective, 1 out of 5, 6, let's say that you will have, it's specifically talking about your performance as a leader, how good feedback you're giving to employees, how much you develop them. And also we're having every 6 months a people leader survey. Okay. This people leader survey, it's intent to really assess how you're doing as a leader. So we're being measured. And also, it's not that we just see, which are the leaders that inspire, which are the leaders we need to emulate, and which leaders need some action. We want our leaders to be successful. Yes. So as HR, we have this nice dashboard where we can take a look and see which leaders need additional work, let's say, an additional mentor, and from there we can move them. We also have been working on how our inspiring leaders walk the talk. And for that, honestly, we have the best. Mary Barra, in addition to embrace diversity and our behaviors, she really talks from the heart.
Yeah.
And there's no tolerance when it comes to a leader mistreating people, not having an inclusive language, or being in a collaborative approach. So that, and finally, we have our workplace environment survey that also measures how leaders are behaving, not only the immediate leader, but in general our leaders, because we want them to really be this example.
I love that. That's why I'm delighted that Mentl are working with General Motors in this partnership. If I go back to this recent McKinsey survey as well, which actually painted quite an alarming picture of this point, this part of the world. They looked at the UAE, looked at Saudi Arabia, looked at Kuwait, and looked at Qatar, and they found that actually 66% of employees were struggling with their mental health. So that means that more of us are now struggling with our mental health than are not. And this is where I really love reading about the work you're trying to do in creating these safe spaces so everybody can turn up. We talk about mental health, or we talk about the ability to have just an honest conversation so we're not isolated, so we're not holding back. How has that played out at General Motors, and why is that so important, that creating that safe space?
Well, first of all is to break this hierarchy, right? Yes, definitely we will have titles and we will have different levels of responsibility, but level of responsibility doesn't mean that I cannot approach my MD or my CEO or whatever. So we have open spaces where you can go and have the conversation. And if you see that something is not aligned to our behaviors and you don't feel comfortable speaking up, we have a channel where you can go and do like a 1-800 kind line, anonymous, and you can go there. And we try to prove employees that we're really listening, right? In all our surveys, we're even asking the question, has something changed after I go and ask you? Because we know that, after going there, we need to action it.
Yeah. I was at a conference recently, and the audience were asked, and it was just a snapshot of the audience, but the audience was asked to kind of define some of the words. Pick a word that defines workplace culture, that defines well-being at work. And one of the biggest words that came out was trust. And it feels like trust is important kind of in both ways. From a company, from a managerial perspective, we have employees who are increasingly working flexibly. So they're not sat right in front of me, so I can't see what they're doing. So I have to, as a manager, let go and trust them. But also with all the services that companies can put in place in terms of mental health support and communication, the employees also have to trust that when they speak, this won't be weaponized against them. If they go, I'm struggling with my mental health today, that it won't be weaponized against them. Again, I want to get your perspective, particularly from what you've learned over the 9 years, about how important that foundation of trust going both ways is.
Well, we have a really strong no-retaliation policy. And this goes across all levels. So this is if I do a speak up for safety, if I do a speak up because, a process is not being followed. But what we try to do is to be really transparent. So yes, we're working in leadership and so on, but still we have some leaders because, we're working towards, right? We have some leaders that it's more the leader being nice, the leader allowing the employee, the leader listening to the employee. And we want all employees to feel that they are entitled to these solutions. So our policies are more transparent and simple than ever. Before there were pages and pages. Today it's just something simple, something that you can describe, in maybe, 2 or 3 lines, so that the employees know that they can access to these mental health solutions, these speak up, versus being, the leader prerogative to give it away or not. And also we have created different forums where we just open the conversation. Like we just had, for example, one with the females. It's just like open the conversation. This forum is for you.
Yeah.
So they start giving us the temperature, right? Or what is in their minds. So based on that, we develop solutions. And even they develop the solution. We have an EDI committee set up globally, and also one here specifically for the region, where it's the employees that have the driving seat, right? They really let us know where to go and what they need. So more than ever, I think that this being approachable kind
Yeah.
of thing is probably what has been working. Now, new generations also are asking more and more for that transparency, no hierarchy, etc. And
Yes.
I love that. I love that because that keeps us challenged, right?
Well, you are actually fairly unique in that perspective. It's interesting because we wrote a story the other day which actually showed that Gen Z employees are one of the most stressed in the Middle East. And we posted something about it, and the amount of and I actually thought, and this was on LinkedIn, I thought that was on Twitter for a moment rather than LinkedIn, because the language that comes through is lazy, selfish, spoiled, snowflakes. How do we create this, this environment where young people come into the office? I like you believe, certainly when I entered the world of work, it was yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. You couldn't challenge it, and if you were in a toxic work environment, you had to literally just suck it up and say nothing, until the point where you were able to escape that hellhole. Now we're in this space where, talent has never been more important. It is one of the foundations of the long-term sustainability of companies. But how do we change that conversation that somehow, the young people coming in, again, the word entitled. I genuinely believe that we are entitled as employees of any age for things to get better, for work practices to improve.
Yes, and we have always been, at some point we were that new generation, right? Labeling generation.
It's a long time since I was the new generation, but yeah.
Labeling generations, I think it's old-fashioned, a little bit old-fashioned, at least my personal point of view, because we have innovative, disruptive, lazy, and whatever employees in all generations, right? But
True.
I think it's but it's more about the person having the right fit with the company.
Yeah.
And for us, that's why it's now our job descriptions and our recruiters are paying also more attention on that cultural fit.
Yeah.
Once the person finds it, doesn't matter the age, but probably a new generation, if they really find this fit, they will grow with the company.
So does this come back to, and if we step back and look at it from the economic health of a company, if we're talking about the ROI, if we're fostering this almost spirit of innovation, so people can go, do you know what? I've got an idea, and this challenge is that, but I want to speak up and say it. That's something that companies really need to capture, because if you want to carry on being relevant in the future and carry on adapting to technological changes and market shifts, you need that innovation, surely, to be able to continue to succeed.
Yes, and we need to be, as leaders from not the new generation, right? We need to keep our minds and ourselves updated, because it's the same as with what you learn as a kid, right? If the answer to any new adventure is no, you will stop thinking about getting into new adventures.
Yeah.
So the moment we say that one of our behaviors is to innovate, we need to embrace risk. We need to provide the tools, and we need to be open to invest in those, right? Or at least to listen. So it needs to become something that is practically working, right? Why? Because otherwise, the first time I tell you, you can be innovative in General Motors and you come with an idea and I say, shoot, no, that won't work. We have been doing this for the past 10 years this way. Then you will probably, step down into this innovation.
Yeah.
And for that's why we keep working with our leaders, doesn't matter, if they're well-seasoned or not, so that they are opening their perspectives into new ideas.
You're clearly very passionate about this.
Yes.
As a human being, where was that passion born? And just give me some kind of insight into, Monica's journey. Have you either experienced the benefits of being in an employer that leans into this, or have you in the past got that perspective where the impact of a toxic work culture on a human being? What's your journey been like as a human being?
Yes, my journey in GM has been long, and I gotta say, it was not always like this. It was more, hierarchy, the script. You should, this is what is expected. But I have been always since ever being curious and being someone that doesn't take a no as an answer if I'm really convinced, right?
I believe that, Monica. I believe that.
It works. So but I understood really early in my career that I could not just go with my excitement and my willingness to do things different. I needed data. And data was not as available as today, right?
Totally,
today you have studies that really embrace the benefits of even just having diversity, right? When I joined, there were no female in the line back in Mexico, in my hometown.
Yeah.
And after, looking into the benefits, having, the right infrastructure and whatever, when I was able to be the personal director at that plant, it was the first time when we onboarded females in the line. And those kind of, achievements energized me. And I tried to bring that passion to my team to say, we can really make a change. I believe that each generation goes through life by leaving a legacy behind. And I think in my generation, we're kind of more feeling, or at least my case, of we can make things in a different way and we can embrace different opinions. At least that was the way I was raised. Yeah. And always in my house, it was like, you can do it, and think about ways of doing it. And don't take a no for, as an initial answer. So in my position in HR, and probably that's why I'm so happy in HR and in GM, it's because we can make these steps, baby steps, probably before baby steps. And now it's like, you can go and run more.
Yeah.
Because we have the support of leadership now.
That almost feels like a mic drop moment, but I'm going to be a bit selfish as well. Like, we're delighted that GM and mentl are partnering together. Mm-hmm. Why did you feel it was time for us to kind of collaborate and amplify this message now?
Because we need to talk more about the topic, but we need to talk more about the topic with facts.
Yes.
If I go back in my career, we just talk about the onboarding females, but the facts were not really there, right?
Yeah.
We also started talking about people of determination and bringing them, but it was more like, well, we will find a way, but it's really difficult. And now it's the moment to say, here are the real tools, and new generations are more open to use those tools. So changing, gears a little bit here and there will make us to really show that the tools are there, and they're practical tools. Even I was thinking about how we used to manage before medical insurance, for example, right?
Yeah.
And at some point it was like, I need something that employees have in their hands, right? Our phones. Yeah. So mentl, I think it tackles, like something that this is what I need. We're in a world of immediate response. That also stresses a lot new generations, as you were saying, totally, because it's like, right? It's like everything. Sometimes we need to tell employees, slow down. You don't need to reply an email immediate, but they are configured this way.
We are on the road. We are on a journey. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is that you need to have solutions that are more liquid knowledge, liquid solutions, kind of. And probably that's why we liked, and definitely we jumped into. This sounds like a solution, a more practical solution, rather than go and, do something more traditional. And being open also to our employees to say, you know what, I need some time off. And it's just because I need it. Yeah. It doesn't matter your lifestyle. It can be you're a caregiver. It can be just that we have a lot of employees here that are living by their own. Yeah. The families are living in a different country. For me, it's the first time that I'm so far from home. Here it's just my husband and I. So I can definitely understand that also not having this network close can trigger more than ever this
and then we
loneliness.
Come back to almost, we're exactly where we started, which is the loneliness. I mean, I could talk to you about this all day. However, what an amazing conversation. And thank you. Look, genuinely, if you've enjoyed this conversation, then please stay tuned because we're going to have lots more conversations. We're delighted to be working with General Motors and we'll be exploring inclusivity, diversity, employee mental health. And there's going to be lots more conversations to come about how organizations can change, improve, and evolve. So finally, once again, Monica, thank you for joining us on the Mental Space.